when working with non-nullable references as the first name variable here. If we wanted to see the length of the first name, we would simply say firstname.length. This would give us the length. There's no need to check to see if first name is null because we're using a non-nullable reference, and Kotlin guarantees that that will not be null. When we are using a non-nullable reference, if we attempt to do the same thing, and we get the last name.length, you'll notice that we have a red squiggly here. So what we have to do is introduce what's known as a safe call. This basically says, if the last name is null, then go ahead and make this null. Otherwise, give it the length. So this variable could be equivalent to one of two things, either null or the number 6, because there's 6 characters in the word Felker. So if the last name is null, it would return null. Otherwise, it would return length. You could do the same thing with an if statement as well in one line. So you could say if last name does not equal null, then you could say last name.length, else we'll say 0. Now what this is doing is saying last name, we're checking to see if last name is not null, then we're going to get the length. Now notice how I did not use the safe call operator here. The reason is Kotlin recognizes in this if statement we are checking to see if last name is null. Therefore, I don't have to check for null here because it was already taken care of in this step. However, if for some reason last name is null, then we'll just go ahead and return a value of 0. So either way, the answer here would be we're either going to get 6 or we're going to get 0. Now, of course, you could change this to null if you would like. That would essentially do the same thing as the above, but most likely you probably want some type of value in your code. So you can do this with a single line if. Now you can also chain these safe calls together. So let's say that we wanted the first 2 letters of the last name, and then we wanted the length of the last name. Notice how we would need, so say length 4. So last name says it needs a safe call. And notice now the next one needs a safe call. So what this one will do is says, hey, if last name is null, then just go ahead and return null. If last name is not null, go ahead and pull the substring off of that. So grab the first 2 characters. And if for some reason that's null, go ahead and return null. Otherwise, go ahead and return length. Now you may have in other languages seen something very similar to this. If last name does not equal null and last name dot length is greater than 1, then you might want to continue off there and get, then you could have your if statement to say that your length or whatever is to check to make sure it's not null. So this would be very common in other languages such as Java, but here you can start chaining these calls together. You could even take this even further by saying last name dot substring would say 05, so we get the first 5 characters. Then we could say something different like drop the last 2 characters, then we could get another substring of those, and then we would say we want the second one to the third one, and then we would say length. And so we could say length 5 equals this. Now, because this could be null all the way across, we would need to use safe calls. So every time all the way across, we need to use these safe calls, meaning that if any of these were to return null, length 5 will be null. Otherwise, it will be the length